Hey, you're watching This Brown Geek. Now this channel name is still changing, but it hasn't changed yet, so you're still watching This Brown Geek. Anyways, that's not important. What's important is that the Online Safety Act strikes again. And just when you thought that we were winning, it turns out that we're not winning, because the UK government is pressuring Apple for backdoor access to iCloud again. Let's talk about it because this isn't good. Also, I'll touch on what's going on with Imgur, if that's how you pronounce it. If you know, you know. If you don't know, you will know once you watch this video. So as you probably already know, the UK government wanted access to encrypted data on Apple's iCloud, and they wanted that on a global scale. Now, I talked about this in a video that I put out, I think it was in July or August, where I went over the demands that the UK government was making on Apple to give them a backdoor into iCloud. Now, this would break encryption on a global scale, and that's not something that Apple is willing to do. So Apple was fighting it, and it all came out in leaks, and it turns out that Apple won because the US government got involved, Donald Trump got involved, Tulsi Gabbard got involved, and they all said, hey, what the hell are you doing? We are not going to let you force Apple into breaking encryption so you can view encrypted data of US citizens, because of course the UK government, being the UK government, wanted access to everyone's private information and encrypted data on iCloud. So when the proverbial hit the fan, the UK government seemed to back down, which is what this article was about in August. But now, since yesterday, I believe, we have this. Well, this article is actually dated today. The UK government reportedly pressures Apple again for a backdoor. Great, here we go again. Look, we're not going to get into the weeds of this because I did that in the last video I made about this. So if you want to know what happened with that, it should pop up above somewhere and you'll see it, and you can go and watch that, then come back to this video or finish watching this one and then go and watch that one, I suppose. Anyways, what's important is the difference here. So initially, like I said at the start of this video, the UK government wanted Apple to break encryption on a global scale so they could access encrypted iCloud data for everyone, including the US, the UK, everyone, in the name of keeping British citizens safe. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, now they've changed it. After having all this pressure from the US government, the UK government is now pressuring Apple for a backdoor into UK encrypted iCloud data, which is all kind of outlined in this cyberinsider.com story here. Now, the reason I'm giving you an update on this is so you know the difference between what they were asking for before and what they're asking for now, and why what they're asking for now is still a really bad thing. Because if Apple does break encryption for UK iCloud users, that means that break in encryption could probably be used to break encryption for US iCloud encrypted data. And again, that's not something that Apple will want to do, and they have categorically stated that they would never do that. So if the UK is trying to pressure Apple into creating a backdoor for encrypted UK iCloud data, how would they go about it? Because Apple is not going to break encryption. So I've looked into it and I think I know what's going to happen here. There are two outcomes to this, in my opinion, maybe three. The first outcome is that the UK gets pressured into dropping it again by the US government. I don't think that's going to happen, and I'll tell you why in a second. The second outcome is that Apple continues to fight it, and eventually the UK tries to fine Apple 10% of their global revenue, then the US government gets involved again, and then everything gets really messy and Apple pulls iCloud from the UK market. I don't see that happening. The third option is probably the most likely, and I'll show you what that is right here. So this is the Cyber Insider story. And then there is this story here, which was also on the Financial Times about the same topic. Oops, I forgot to show you my screen. There we go. This is the Financial Times article, and it's basically going over the same thing as before. So you can pause the video and kind of read through it at your own pace if you want to. But again, it's going over pretty much everything that we talked about in the other video, so don't worry too much about it. The only difference is that the UK government now wants access to encrypted UK data and not encrypted data on a global scale. But again, like I mentioned, if they break UK encryption for iCloud, they'll break it everywhere, and it will make encryption on iCloud less secure for everyone. And Apple doesn't want that. Nobody wants that. Only crazy people would want that. So that says a lot about the UK government, in my opinion. So then I carried on looking into this, and I thought, okay, what could be the possible outcome for the UK to win this, and for the US government to let it slide, and for Apple to give in and let this happen? So I thought about it and I thought, okay, so iCloud also operates in China, right? So if iCloud operates in China, then how do they get around it? Because obviously the Chinese government want access to everything that's encrypted on iCloud. So how did Apple get around it? And how did the Chinese government gain access to iCloud encrypted data in China without Apple breaking its own encryption. And the way they did it was this. This is what they did. Check this out. Here we go. Apple is moving iCloud data and encryption keys to a local provider in China, risking its privacy protecting credentials rather than its third largest market. So this is what might happen in the UK. Apple might be forced to move all of the UK iCloud data to UK owned servers and then hand over encryption keys just for those servers, like they have done in China. That means that the UK government will have access to everything that you have encrypted on your iCloud because it will be UK based, and they will have the encryption keys to all of that data. And Apple will get around it the same way as they did in China by kind of washing their hands of it and saying, okay, screw you guys, you handle it then. We're not going to break our encryption, but here's your little bubble that you can work in, and everyone in the UK is screwed now, and you guys can just get on with it. It's really funny because the UK and people in the UK and lawmakers in the UK always use China as an example of what not to do. Don't break encryption, don't invade people's privacy, don't go against free speech. We're going so backwards right now that we have become a laughing stock on a global scale. Anyway, so that's everything that happened with the UK and Apple right now. And as you can see, it is a really big mess. And I don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to happen. Something has to give. Either Apple has to give in, or the UK government has to give in, or Apple just lets them have their own iCloud encrypted servers in the UK with their encryption keys, and they just say, okay, you guys just get on with it. We've already done this in China, so screw it. I don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully that doesn't happen, because that will be another huge blow to people in the UK, again, as usual, because it's just bad news here every day. Anyways, let's not get into it. The next thing that I want to talk about really quickly is, you might have noticed that when you go on a lot of forums and stuff, you're being greeted with this when trying to view images. It says content not viewable in your region. Now this is happening to any content or images hosted by Imgur, I-M-G-U-R. I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Imgur. Anyways, not important. The point is that Imgur is a US based company that hosts images on the internet. Now they host tens of millions of images. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. If you look at a meme online, or if you're part of a forum, or if you look at Steam pages or images hosted on lots of websites, chances are a lot of the images that you're viewing are hosted on Imgur, because it's an image hosting site on the internet. It used to be a lot bigger back in the day, but it is still very relevant. And a lot of the data on the internet, or a lot of the images on the internet, are still hosted on Imgur. Now, Imgur has pulled out of the UK market. So when you go on their website, this is what you see. Check this out. Content not available in your region. Learn more about Imgur access in the United Kingdom. Okay, so let's just read this first paragraph because it's the most important paragraph and it's not very long. From September 30th, 2025, access to Imgur from the United Kingdom is no longer available. UK users will not be able to log in, view content, or upload images. Imgur content embedded on third-party sites will not display for UK users. That's why you're probably seeing this everywhere on forums and stuff, if you do go on forums and Reddit and things like that. Do you see how damaging this is to the UK market? And not only that, now I say that on purpose because I forgot to show you this. This is a BBC article here. Now, I don't normally go on the BBC as my source of news because reasons, but this article has comments enabled. So I was scrolling through the comments and a lot of the comments are against what's happening right now. But these comments here were interesting. Now, this guy, Nick, says, I'm a UK tech company startup owner and I'm going to block access for UK people when we launch. It's just not worth the risk. The UK is only a small part of the market. I expect many others to go this way. And then some guy called Genesis responded to Nick and said, yep, I blocked UK access instantly when the law came into effect. Not that I make more than a small trickle of income off my website, but I can't risk arbitrary punishment because some ignorant MPs don't understand how the internet works. Now, these are startups that are saying this, startups with very little revenue. And remember, the UK government is saying that if they break the rules that they've introduced with the Online Safety Act, then they are fined 10% of their global revenue. You can imagine that if there's small tech startups that are worried about this, imagine what the big online platforms are thinking. I mean, they're thinking, holy hell, we can either spend millions of dollars or pounds or euros or whatever trying to police our social media networks to comply with these draconian laws that they've brought in, or we can just say screw it and pull out of the UK market and save ourselves all this money. If you were one of those platforms, and if you were an online startup that could be targeted by the Online Safety Act and the UK government and find 10% of your global revenue, would you not also want to pull out of the UK market? I probably would. You'd be crazy not to think that. Now, Imgur is based in San Francisco as far as I know. So it's another US company that is basically saying F you to the UK government and just pulling out. 4chan literally wrote a letter to the UK government saying, go F yourself basically. We are not based in your country, so you can't tell us what to do. And I imagine the UK government will block 4chan at some point. Look, the point I'm trying to make here is that the amount of overreach that's occurring in the UK right now in terms of free speech, privacy, encryption, the Online Safety Act, all in the name of keeping children safe. I mean, if you want to keep children safe, why not educate parents? Why not show parents that there is a way to filter your children's online content? Why not teach parents how to add these blocks onto their children's iPhones or tablets or whatever? Why not come from a point of educating your population instead of censoring everything and putting all these blocks in place and destroying people's right to privacy? It's insane. No matter which way you look at it, in my opinion, I think it's insane. And if you think this is insane, we haven't even talked about digital ID on this channel yet. I am working on a video on digital ID and what it is and what it means, but honestly, it's such a rabbit hole. And the more I look into it, the more scary it becomes. But right now, I just wanted to fill you in on what's happening with the Online Safety Act between UK and Apple and what I think the likely outcome is for UK based iCloud encryption. It's not good. I don't know what's going to happen, but I've shown you what could happen, which is even more scary than what is going on right now. Now, before people in the comments say I'm moving to Android, just remember that companies aren't allowed to talk about what the UK government wants them to do. The only reason we know about this is because it leaked somehow. I'm guessing Apple leaked it because they wanted everyone to know. The fact that we haven't heard about Google fighting this with Apple speaks volumes, because in my opinion, Google probably folded and gave them access. Apple is fighting it, which in my opinion, Apple deserves a lot of respect for fighting it, and they're fighting it in a very public way so everybody can see what's happening. If your stuff is stored on Google servers, I'd be way more worried than your stuff being stored on iCloud servers right now. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like this video if you liked it or found it informative in any way, and please do consider subscribing if you haven't already. Honestly, it goes a really long way and I'll really appreciate it. You've been watching This Brown Geek. For now, I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.